Hari Hari. So we're on verse 12. We'll do two verses. They are quite similar. Verses 12 and 13 of the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So Duryodhana has finished speaking, and Sanjaya is continuing to narrate to Dhritarashtra. He says, Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. Text 13. After that, the conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. Duryodhana is spouting foolishness as he's talking to his guru, Dronacharya, in manipulative, demeaning, and disrespectful ways. He turns to Bhishma and tries to make remarks to inflate Bhishma's ego. Bhishma is much too wise to be taken in by the foolishness that is Duryodhana. And rather than hearing Duryodhana spout on and on in this foolish way, Bhishma simply sounds his conch shell, doesn't reply back, doesn't want to get drawn into. This is the culmination of 20, 30 odd years of Duryodhana's foolishness. It's kind of like Bhishma saying, all right, enough already. We're here. You brought us here. You have gotten us to the situation where the whole entire known world of Bharat is at war at each other or with each other. And there's nothing more to say. Let's get on with it. Get this over with already. Swayambhu Narada Shambhu Kumara Kapilo Manu Pralado Janako Bhishmo Bhalirvaya Sakir Vayam. The 12 Mahajans, right? Bhishma is one of the 12 Mahajans. So many lessons can be taken from the life of Bhishma Dev. One or number of very powerful lessons is his ability to walk his Svadharma without complaint whatsoever. From a very young age, when his mother, Ganga, brought him back from the heavenly planets after having gone to Gurukul, after having studied under Parashuram, Ganga brings him back to Shantanu in Hastinapur. Young Devavrat was his name before he became Bhishma. Broad-shouldered, youthful, beautiful, at the very beginning of what would be the prime of his life. The first thing he does is he makes a promise never to marry. First he makes a promise never to claim rightfully the throne, and that he was a rightful heir. He was the eldest son of Shantanu. But what did he promise to the fisherman who wanted his grandchildren to sit on the throne of Hastinapur? Devavrat said, very well, I renounce my claim to the throne of Hastinapur. This all in service of his father, that it is the duty of the son to take care of the parents, do whatever they can to take care of and make the parents happy. Devavrat, without blinking, sure, very well, I renounce my claim to the throne. Now, your daughter, Satyavati, can marry my father, Shantanu. But the fisherman, crafty, he knew the ways of palace intrigue. So what does he say? Very well, that's fine for you. You have renounced your claim, your rightful claim to the throne, but you cannot speak for your children. You are a virile, young Kshatriya, you will undoubtedly have many wives, many children. There's no question I can foresee that one of them will claim, and they will have a legitimate claim to the throne. And they will usurp the throne, and then my descendants, my grandchildren, the sons of my daughter, will not be able to rule peacefully. Without blinking, Devavrat, Bhishma, very well, I won't marry. I won't marry. All in service of the dharma of a child to take care of and do everything they can that is in the benefit of their parents and Bhishma being a Kshatriya for the well-being of Hastinapur. Shantanu, Bhishma's father, Devavrata's father, was sitting on the throne of Hastinapur, depressed, neglecting his responsibilities of state. That's why Devavrat went to the fishermen in the first place, because Shantanu was pining over Satyavati, the fisherman's daughter. And Hastinapur was languishing, was not being cared for. Problems were beginning to manifest and were becoming worsened by the day because Shantanu had no interest anymore in ruling. He was only stuck in pining for Satyavati. So for the well-being of the citizens, for the well-being of Hastinapur, for the well-being of his father, Devavrat took up these two vows. I renounce my claim to the throne. I will not have children. I will not marry. Let's get on with it. Let's have the wedding. Doesn't stop there. Shantanu, Satyavati have children. It's time to get them married. Sons, time to get these boys married, young men. Bhishma goes, I believe it was the kingdom of Kashi, if I'm not mistaken. He goes there, kidnaps the princesses of the king of Kashi, the three of them, takes them to Hastinapur, has them marry the two sons of Shantanu, his brothers, his half-brothers. Of the three princesses, two willingly married Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. One princess, turns out she had no desire whatsoever to be married into the kingdom of Hastinapur. In fact, her heart was set on another. And Bhishma just burst into the marriage ceremony, the Swayamvar, where the women chose their husbands, and just grabbed the three princesses and ran off with them. I believe her name was Amba. Amba says, I'm not interested in marrying Chitrangada or Vichitravirya. My heart was set on another king. I forget the name of the king. I mean, was it Shalya? Could have been. Not sure. Doesn't matter. Bhishma says, I'm sorry. Go on back to Shalya. So Amba goes back to Shalya. Shalya says, no, I'm not going to take leftovers. You go back. You've been taken by Bhishma. You dragged off to Hastinapur, and I'm supposed to take. I'm a Kshatriya king. I don't take charity. She's like, I'm not charity. I've always wanted you, always the love that I wanted to marry. And Bhishma came and interrupted that. But Shalya was not persuaded. So she goes back. She says, my dear Bhishma, now I'm not interested in marrying these two princes you brought me here to marry. The man I set my heart on to marry doesn't want to marry me because of you. So it's not your responsibility. You have to marry me. Bhishma says, I'm sorry, I've taken a vow, I can't marry. Amba says, we won't go into what Amba said. Essentially, Amba said, how dare you just go into someone's life and just destroy their entire life without any consideration as to the consequences. And you just, in such a blasé manner, she chastised Bhishma, gave him entirely what for. Bhishma says, no, I've made a promise not to marry. I can't marry you. Amba went to Bhishma's guru, Parashuram, and told Parashuram, your disciple Bhishma, he's done this. Have him, force him to marry me. Parashuram appeared before his disciple, Bhishma Dev. Marry, I order you to marry Amba. You've caused this problem. You have to deal with the consequences. You marry Amba. Bhishma, no. Bhishma knew he was committing Guru Aparad, disobeying the instruction of the Guru. He made his promise, he was going to keep his promise. Even if keeping his promise meant disobeying the instruction of his Guru, he would disobey. And this is what makes the lessons of Bhishma Dev's life so poignant. He accepted the consequences of his choice. All throughout Bhishma's life, he made choices, difficult choices, hard choices. Some may say foolish choices, whatever the case may be. All the mistakes he made, all the correct decisions he made, everything. He never, ever, not once, ever shied away from the consequences of his choices. Parashuram says, you marry Amba, or I will kill you. I will fight with you and I will kill you. This is his guru. Parashuram says, I cannot marry Amba. I've promised. I'm perfectly willing to die at your hands. Bhishma and Parashuram fought for many, many days. Parashuram could not defeat his own disciple. Finally, Parashuram had to bless him. May you live forever. And it was the second time he was blessed to live forever, but that's beside the point. Parashuram told Amba, I've given him the instruction. He's disobeyed my instruction. I tried to force him, fight with him. I could not defeat him. Find some other means. And then the story goes on. Amba worships with Shiva, gets the boon that she can eventually fight and be the cause of Bhishma's death. The point I'm trying to make is, in understanding Bhishma's life, everything that he did, the choices he made, he never, ever shied away from the consequences of the choices he made. The fact that he's now has to fight for the Kauravas, when he knows the Pandavas are actually the rightful heirs to the throne, because of his promise that he would always protect the throne of Hastinapur, the person sitting on Hastinapur, sitting on the throne of Hastinapur, he now has to fight for the Kauravas against Dharma. But that was his Svadharma. And this goes back to the statement where Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, follow your Svadharma even if it kills you. Even if it leads to your destruction, you follow your Svadharma. This is the overarching lesson of Bhishma Dev's life. The mistakes he makes, the choices he makes, the vows, all these things, sometimes they might think, my God, Bhishma, what are you doing? What are you thinking? The one person who could have changed the course of the Mahabharata was Bhishma, other than Krishna. The one individual who could have changed everything, who had the power, both the knowledge, the credibility, the validity as the protector of Hastinapur. He, in every way, he had the capacity, the ability, the credibility, the power to change the course of the history of the Mahabharata. But doing any of those things would have forced him to step outside what he recognized as his Svadharma. Bhishma followed his path of Svadharma, and it led to his destruction, his personal destruction. Ultimately, his glorification. We're talking about Bhishma now because of his following Svadharma. This is the lesson of Bhishma Dev's life. When Krishna gives that instruction in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, then again in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Shrayan Svadharma Viguna, Paradharmat Svanushtita, Swadharme Nidhanam Shreya, Paradharmo Bhayavaha. Shrayan Svadharma Viguna. It is by far better to follow your own Svadharma, even if it leads to your destruction, than to engage in another dharma. Identify your Svadharma. Follow your Svadharma, even if it apparently, in the short term, it may seem it will lead to your destruction. Ultimately, it leads to your benefit. Our Svadharma is unique to us. It's like a fingerprint in our life as human beings, in this human body. Our Svadharma was uniquely chosen for us to walk. No one else can walk our Svadharma, can engage in our Svadharma. And it is unique to us for a reason. We have a backlog of karma that we must expend. The path before us, the Svadharma before us, is tailor-made so that if we walk that path, when we come to the end of that path, the baggage of karma we've had is nullified, destroyed, zero, completely eliminated. If we do not walk our path of Svadharma and take on another dharma, then not only the karma that we have that was supposed to be expended by walking our Svadharma remains, but now we are adding karma from this other path that we are walking. So we came into this world with 100 units of karma to expend. If we walked our Svadharma, by the end of our life, the 100 units of karma would have been obliterated. But if we do not walk our path of dharma, the 100 units of karma, that is our baggage, remains. In addition to the karma that we now accumulated from walking a different path. So at the end of our life, we end up with the 100 that we started with, the 100 units of karma we started with, and the additional 100 units we have gained by walking a path other than our Svadharma. So now we leave this world, rather than with a 0 units of karma, we now have 200. Walk your path of dharma, even if it leads to your destruction. Because your Svadharma does not lead to your destruction. Your Svadharma leads to the eradication of karma. When karma is eradicated, moksha is attained. The life of Bhishma exemplifies what it means to walk your Svadharma, even if it leads to your having a life that is utterly miserable. And that is the glory of Bhishma. He lived a very long life, but it was always poisoned by the toxicity that was Duryodhana. He was unable to marry, unable to have children, unable to enjoy the children of his brothers, his nephews, and the Kauravas and the Pandavas, because they're trying to kill each other. Having to deal with Amba and the fact that she's trying to kill him because of the mistakes he made in disrupting her life. Everything he does, he lives, breathes, thinks simply and entirely and solely for the well-being of Hastinapur, and he gets absolutely nothing in return. He's not the king. Dhritarashtra is the king, and he makes Duryodhana the king. Bhishma is not the king. That was his vow. I will not sit the throne of Hastinapur. Rather, I will protect it with my life. Bhishma gets nothing. So from that point of view, Bhishma's Svadharma was the cause of his destruction. But his life was glorious and ended in salvation, ended in moksha, because he left this world with zero karmic baggage. This is the lesson of the life of Bhishma Dev. Hari Hari.